Hey there viewers, welcome back to the South Main Auto channel. If you're new here, welcome to our channel. Got a new video, a little different than what we normally do, but it's a repair video all the same. So you can see behind me, I've got this 05 Subaru Outback here, and it was brought in for none other than a head gasket, as you may have guessed. And you know, we've done head gasket videos before, and I do quite a few of these head gaskets, probably one a month or a couple a month or so, something like that. I don't really keep track, but we've done a lot. And this vehicle here was actually brought in by a YouTuber. So this lady had called me up and had seen the video and has done a lot of her own work, but decided to bring the car to me to have the head gasket done, and that's pretty cool. So she drove several hours to get here, and everything is done. It's all back together. However, when I was pulling it apart, we ran into a code red situation. This came out with a couple of the bolts, which was odd. I've never ran into this before on a Subaru. And these are the bolts right here that hold the power steering pump on. Okay, so to do this job, you have to pull the power steering pump off, and typically what I do is pull the whole power steering pump bracket off. As you've seen in my Subaru head gasket video on EJ253 engine, that when I do these, I just do them with the engine in the car, because frankly, I think it's easier than pulling the engine. We know there's a lot of opinions on that, but I'm pretty efficient at doing them. At any rate, to pull the bracket off, when I crack these bolts loose, they just kind of crack loose and pulled out, which is really bizarre. The other thing I noticed too is that the power steering pressure switch was already unplugged. So I don't know if this is a failure from a previous repair, perhaps somebody getting it too tight, or if it's just a failure in the aluminum, because the aluminum, like I say, it wasn't stripped. It just appeared that when the bolt cracked loose, so did all the threads. The power steering bolts are held in with Loctite. And all of the bolts look good. None of them are gnarred up or boogered up. But like I say, unfortunately, 2 of the holes are stripped. And what I thought I'd do is, what my anticipation is on this, I wanted to do a timing belt. Yeah, it's the end of the day. My mind's all mixed up. What I wanted to do was a Subaru timing belt video, because I haven't done one of those yet, oddly enough. As many of these I do, I've yet to record a Subaru timing belt video. But with that being said, things just did not work out when I tore this apart. I'm so far behind in work, different story. But at any rate, I figured I can do a little video on what do you do when you have a hole that's stripped out. So here we go. We're gonna do that, but first I'm gonna finish my 2-day-old stale donut chocolate milk, and then we'll get started. Oh man, I love chocolate milk. Peanut butter and jelly. It's so not good for me, but it does the body good, right? Anyhow, what we're gonna do to fix this stripped out hole is we're gonna use a Heli-coil. It's just a brand of thread insert. I think the technical thing is thread inserts, but these are the Heli-coil brand. These are ones I use. I've got all different sizes and stuff. So this is an 8mm by 125, and basically that's pretty simple. What we're gonna do is we're going to drill a hole using a 21/64 drill bit, and then we're going to tap the hole out using the provided tap. And then what we do is we're going to stick in these steel thread inserts, basically using a install tool. And then, if all goes well, we'll be able to use the factory bolt, which is our intention. And unfortunately, these both of these ones that stripped out are in what I would consider a blind hole. So we have to be really careful. We can't over drill beyond the depth of what it's drilled from the factory, simply because we don't know how much material is behind that hole. You don't want to get in there all hog wild, and next thing you know, you've got antifreeze peeing out, or whatever, whatever's behind there. Big problems, that's what it is. So you gotta be careful. I'll show you how to kind of go about this. Just kind of give you an idea where we're at. We've got the engine. I've already put the heads on it, and I've got it going back together. It's obviously not done yet, because I wanted to wanted to get everything covered up and buttoned up as far as I could until I got to the point where, you know, we had to put on the power steering pump here, which, you know, it kind of sits up here out of the way. And it bolts on, you know, here in this bolt and here, and I think maybe here. Let's see. Now just the 3 bolts there, I guess. So bolts on there, there, and there. At any rate, this back bolt is good, but I remember when I took it apart, like I say, I remembered I had to do this and kind of forgot until I got to the point where I'm like, oh man. But at any rate, I'll show you what happens. And like I said, I don't believe these bolts were cross-threaded or anything, but you can see that you can just kind of, let me show you, you can just kind of push it in. And it's basically goes in up to the point as to where it was, where the Loctite ends. So yeah, there's kind of threads in there, but it just, you know, just pulled them, frankly. It just, nothing. Same thing with this one here. Just push it in, nothing. So, but like I say, this hole back here is fine. Thankfully, because that one's kind of a stinker to get to. Like I say, that one's fine. So basically, we're just gonna fix these front two and call it good. First thing I want to do is get a, we'll start with this hole up here. I just want to get a depth measurement on it. I'm just going to use a screwdriver so I can mark it to the back of the hole. This isn't really rocket science here, but I'm going to take and transfer this depth measurement here to my drill bit and just mark it with a piece of tape. That way I don't drill too deep. Transfer that on there, and like I say, the easiest thing to do. If you have some collars, I mean, they make these different drill depth collars. I don't have any. I mean, I've got a couple, just not in this size. I got some that have come with some other kits. I've got a couple time cert kits which I use, which are like really expensive helicoils, but they're really fabulous actually. At any rate, we're just going to look at this. Being that they're a blind hole, usually you can drill and not have your you know, not have your drill bit go through. Usually it'll go in, it'll stop. You kind of have to push it through, but these drill bits are quite sharp. These are kind of a special drill bit I have. They're a really short set. So, you know, as opposed to your average long drill bit, you know, these things are quite short, so they work good on these little 90-degree drills. They're cobalt, they're super sharp, so they'll cut through aluminum like nothing, and this will at least kind of give us a gauge to let us know that we've gone deep enough. This drill bit is pretty high speed, so we have to be real careful. This thing really zincs. So at any rate, drill straight. I mean, that's all I can tell you. You want to be nice and straight. Oh, let's see if I can do this so you guys can see what's going on here. Wow! This drill's so stinking sharp. Hose over here. Alright, we're right to the edge of our tape. Just want to stick a screwdriver in there, make sure I don't feel any more threads. Yeah, there's still a few more threads in there. Hear them? Let's double check our depth measurement here. Usually I err on the side of caution. So yeah, we can go a smidge deeper, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Let's do that, just to be sure. Okay, I actually felt it hit bottom. At least we kind of knew where we were at. I only feel about one more thread catching in there. Just gonna leave it. Get a blow nozzle and kind of blast this stuff off. So the helicoil sets come with their own tap. So we're gonna get our tap lubed up. You know, again too, you're going to want to keep your tap nice and straight. But make sure you start it straight as you can. unfortunately, these really aren't a bottoming tap. So we're just going to take it as far as we can. Occasionally just turn your tap backwards to cut the thread, or cut the curl, I guess. You know, as it's cutting the threads, it kind of curls up in the flutes. And if you just go backwards briefly, it'll kind of shear that off. It's starting to get a little snug, so I'm going to take and back it out and blast out the hole, get the shavings out of there. Tap cleaned off, and kind of re-lube the tap here. Carefully get it restarted again. You don't want to have to cut. You don't want to cut different threads, but it should screw in nice and easy. You'll know when it hits because it'll be done. Just keep going. Right there, you can easily tell it stopped. I mean, it comes right to a positive stop. We'll take and spin it out and get the hole cleaned out. Now that you've got your hole drilled and tapped out, it comes with a insert tool, and it's just a square head. So I just got it in a tap wrench. But you'll see what these thread inserts. Let me grab an extra one here. This is what the thread inserts look like. They've got that little tang on the end of them, and that will catch right here on the insert tool. So we're going to take this, and you can actually start this by hand. You'll feel it start. Now these turn in, they don't really turn in easy by hand as far as, what I want to say, just like, just spinning it in all the way. They go in, but they go in with some resistance, so don't be surprised, don't expect to just spin that in there easy. But you'll know once you get it started. Once you get started, I'll get the tap wrench kind of back on there, and it'll spin it pretty easy, I guess, when you got some leverage. And then I'm just going to take it until the coil is flush with the aluminum. You see that last coil come around. Now we'll just go just a smidgen more, just to make sure that coil's not going to snag. And then you can take and spin the tool out. Okay, now typically what you would do is once you've got that coil inserted into your hole, you reach through, and you have to use like a screwdriver or a little tiny pair of needle nose. You'd reach through and you'd bust this tang off, that tang that you use to insert it. They break off relatively easy. You can reach in there with a screwdriver and you can poke it. If we're reaching in the hole, you reach through the screwdriver, you just kind of jam on that and you'll snap it off. I've got a really long pair of skinny needle nose I'll use to break those off. In this situation though, I don't think we have to fuss with it, because when we put the pump on, this, I believe, is, this here's the bolt. So what it's doing, let me just show you. This bolt is the one that goes into that hole. So, we can see, we can look right on the bolt, we can see how far it was inserted. It's obvious on the threads, but we can just take and mark that with our Sharpie. And what we'll do is, if we can insert it that far without hitting that tang, there's no sense in actually cutting that tang off, in my opinion. Trying to fuss with that, taking the chance of messing up our coil. So we can see You know, I've got this mark with a Sharpie, hopefully you can see it. We'll see if it threads in that far without any kind of interference. And if it does, we'll call it good. I'll get a light up here so you can see what we're doing. I'll show you. But right back to the factory size, it threads in nice and easy. Let's see where we're at there. Okay, we're out of Sharpie and we're still going, so no problem. So what we're gonna do is just leave that tang right on there without any interference. Right there is our Sharpie mark. And we go at least, oh gosh, maybe a thread and a half, 2 threads past that. So that'll compensate for squashing down our lock washer. So we don't have to worry about that. I think we're in good shape. Well, there's our finished product. Kind of a up close view for you so you can see what that looks like. Heli-coils do a nice job. I've used them on everything from head bolts to, I even heli-coiled a crankshaft main bearing in one time in a Cadillac. Intake bolts, use them on all sorts of stuff. They seem to work really well. I've never had one fail, I guess, so I just keep using them. Just go ahead and do this last hole here and get this thing taken care of. Mark that. Transfer our mark. Pretty close. All right, round 2. This thing is so touchy. Double check the depth here. The other thing too, I got thinking, in a situation like this, particularly where we're dealing next to an oil port or water port or anything, not so much the depth, but perhaps wall thickness too is something you might have to keep in mind, depending on how big or how aggressive you're going with your drill. Particularly if you're going to full oversize, keep in mind not just depth, but the width of the hole that you're drilling, or the diameter rather. All right, felt that hit the bottom of the hole there, so we'll take and blow this out. Do the same process over that we just did. Move our tap. obviously hit the bottom. So there's no mistaking that. Trust me, you don't want to break a tap off. So definitely use your mind, not your muscle, when you're working on these things, or any kind of tap for that matter. You really didn't think I was going to go the whole video without this, did you? Just to be on the safe side. Now that we got that out of the way, we're going to insert the coil. This is the bolt that goes there. This is the one that originally had the Loctite on it. You can see where the Loctite ends. That this bolt, or the threads rather, were only basically the same depth as this insert. So basically we're just going to turn this insert in like, a coil or a coil and a half or so past flush, and then again we don't have to worry about getting this metal tang off. Now you're probably wondering, like, why I worry about the metal tang. Well, I don't even know if I mentioned it a little while ago when I was doing the other one, but I've had some issues with them before. If they don't break perfectly clean, then when you run the bolt in, it tends to kind of tighten up as it goes past that point. So I'm always a little cautious on those. If we can do a blind hole without having to break it off, if we're getting full thread contact, then fine, just leave it. It'll be ultimately be better, and we don't have to worry about that bolt snagging on that, or trying to back the insert out at some point. I know some people are going to ask, why don't you Loctite your insert in? I never have. They always go in with enough friction. I've never really worried about it. I guess personally, I've never really had one, come back out, unless it's, unless there's some kind of shoddy work, or it snags that tang. But typically, you do a good job and take your time, and get your hole straight, and get it seated properly. I don't usually have any problems. So we're in just a little bit. There, we're in just about one thread. Take this back out, and we'll get the actual bolt that goes in that hole. We'll thread it in, see if we can get it past the, see if it goes past that Loctited portion, or at least up to it. Yeah, so we're totally fine, because originally it would have stopped about there, because it would have been flush with that outer thread. We go in a good thread and a half past that. So I say we're in good shape for the shape we're in. Again, just to be safe. So the final test, I guess, is to put the pump on. Now I was going to be a good steward here and torque that for you guys. Because I know the big question is can the helicoil withstand the torque load? And oddly enough, this came to a surprise to me, because I went to look it up to see what the torque spec was on these bracket bolts, and it's the only thing that Subaru does not have a torque spec on. They got a torque spec on this bolt that goes to the alternator. They got the torque spec on the two bolts that go from pump to bracket, the one bolt from pump to bracket, but nothing on bracket to block. Therefore, I can't get in trouble. Before we get all carried away here, I'm gonna make some connections. That way this thing has a fighting chance to run. It'll be a self-made auto video, and that's why I was dropping everything. You can put a little Loctite on it for you. Well, until next time, we'll stick these back in there with all the other metric ones I have. So it's good to have a, assortment around. I mean, I've got 6, 8, 9, 10, a couple different thread pitches, and 5/16, 7/16, 3/4, 3/8. Got some oddballers down here. Some of these are expensive too. Like this kit was a $70 kit, only had 6 coils in it. What's it, 12 by 125. I don't know why it's so expensive, but evidently I needed it. It's not like they go to waste. Of course, I've got some stuff back here I didn't even know I had. Should come back in this drawer once in a while. But they're good to have. Got some other sets too, different types, all different kinds. But helicoils are pretty readily available. Like I say, I've got these time cert kits too, and these are really nice if you need some really specialized stuff. These ones are for what was this one for? I think Honda V6 drain plugs, like in the 3.5s. So I keep those around. And, that's a spark plug remover. Oh, this is the spark plug thread repair kit. These are pretty handy. These Save-It threads. These just kind of thread into a 14 millimeter hole, and then it's kind of a drill and tap all in one. Then you run these types of thread inserts in there, and as a special tool that you take and smash them down with, and there's a little bit of a knurl on them that kind of keeps them in there. So those are pretty handy. Used to do a lot of these on the engines where we didn't need this. Ford's always had 2 problems. Either you couldn't get the spark plugs out, or it'd blow them out and hit the hood. So you had to have 2 different kits. Of course, you guys probably remember the video where we used this little guy. This was an expensive little kit. This was for that Toyota 2A ZFE engine that pulled all the head bolts out. So I've probably got more thread repair kits kicking around here somewhere. We've got a lot of stuff. It collects dust. You can't get rid of it because you never know. Well, there you have it, viewers. That's that. Easy fix, really, for what perceivably could be a really big problem. That's the engine block. It's not like we can just go down and, get a new part, like, the whole stripped out, we'll just get a new, part, X, or fill in the blank. That's actually the engine block. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. And that was, 66.66% of the bolts that held that water pump on, because there was only 3 bolts. So kind of needed all of them, or at least the majority of them. And that was the majority of them, but you can see that using that insert is a good way to fix it. I think it's the only way to fix it. It's probably the best way to fix it, in my opinion, and still use the factory bolts. If there was a torque spec, you could easily torque them to spec still. But you could see that, I was able to, well, you couldn't see me pushing on the ratchet, but it was, 30 foot-pounds ish, something like that. It was up there, and it worked good. I think this lady will be happy. I want to get my head job on this thing finished. I told her it was going to be done at the end of the day today, because I just got the heads back, and she's probably anxious to get her car back. Got a little bit more I want to do to it. She needs, wanted the rest of the services done, trainee fluid, front and rear differentials, and of course, you know, the coolant's going to be all new. And we've got a new timing belt and serpentine belt, and we got a new everything, timing component kit, water pump, thermostat, the whole shebang. Got it all done. That's it. I gotta get busy. We gotta get this thing running before I go home so I can get some sleep tonight. Otherwise I'll be up biting my nails all night. Wonder if it's gonna work, but I'm pretty confident things went pretty well. So thanks for watching, viewers. You can check us out on Facebook if you haven't. You can find us on Google Plus too if you want to connect with us socially there. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. So thanks for watching.